If girls became guys, what would they be most surprised by? Many women are not familiar with the feeling of being looked at as a danger, threat, or pervert, but it seems that most of my colleagues who have a penis will experience this feeling at some point, no matter how well they fit these descriptions. I mean, if you're a tall or big guy, then you've probably had to deal with some worried mother pulling her child closer, or a small woman clutching her things to her, which is quite normal. We are all strangers to each other on the street. However, you still get a strange feeling when this happens. A slight feeling that you are expendable, that fewer people, or no one at all, need you.
The very expression used during critical situations, women and children first, is just a more polite way of saying literally everything except men. Our lives are literally seen as less worthy of salvation.
Relationships with the opposite sex. I'm not saying it's easy for women, but it's really hard for men. It's not just about the dates themselves. You constantly have to deal with rejections that you cannot understand in any way. One woman told me that she doesn't date guys whose names are the same as mine. Like, she had a boyfriend with that name in high school who turned out to be a jerk. She was about 40 years old. The other one said she likes me, but she doesn't like my last name. Another one said that we don't do very well in photos together. Such things are quite tiring. I've heard many transgender men complain about loneliness. As you get older, it takes a lot of effort to make and keep friends. Besides, being a guy and going through difficult times, society's unlikely to show you enough sympathy.
Yeah, I always think of a dude who tried to go to groups of people who help fight domestic violence. He was repeatedly kicked out of there for being a guy. Then he tried to create his own band, but no one gave a shit about it. Others continued to mock him, and eventually he committed. I may not know some of the details, but the gist of the story is this.
The case when you're going to take a piss, and the jet for some strange reason splits into two parts and one of the powers in the wrong place.
This happens with the vulva, but there can be even more jets with it, and sometimes a jet flowing up the ass. I see how people react to my partner when he is dealing with children. It would really piss me off if people thought that I was incompetent in parenting and that I should be praised even for some small thing. It would have blown my mind if someone had asked if I was sitting with my own children.
Honestly, I don't think it's going to be one thing. Most women would most likely experience a specific culture shock if they woke up as a man tomorrow. The problem is also that in certain circles, it is customary to assert that since men do not face the problem of X, it means that it is easier for us. But in reality, either this statement is absolutely wrong, in fact, we are faced with problem X, it is just not talked about so often, not at all. Or it is deeply erroneous, based on personal prejudices, or is a symptom of outright sexism. Of course, it works both ways.
I once read an interview with a transgender man who said that the most shocking thing in life after starting taking hormones is that he is constantly excited and finds himself staring at women on the subway, imagining them in all sorts of scenarios. And so it was not only with women who seemed attractive to him, but with all women in general. He was very excited about it, and he asked his male friends. They have it too. And they replied, yes, all the time. I don't think I'd like that. It's not that I've never looked at any handsome man on the subway, but I don't have such thoughts all the time.
How much effort does it take to avoid being known to others as a creep dude or a pervert, or to achieve that notorious presumption of innocence? I'll tell you about an incident that happened to me just the other day. I was sitting alone at the train station. No one was there yet, as I arrived very early. The train station was quite large. I was sitting in sunglasses and watching all sorts of stuff on my mobile, when suddenly I heard, "Excuse me, what do you allow yourself?" I look up and see a woman standing and staring at me. Huh? What? I'm confused because I've just been yanked out of my little world. Where are you looking at and what have you photographed? I want to check your phone. What? I look around and see three very young girls in bikinis squatting in front of me and waiting for the train. And then I realize what this woman must have been thinking. I have autism, and even at my best, I can hardly stand confrontation with people in public. All my rights to privacy in the moment went to the trash. If I argue, she'll call the police. If I leave, I'll look guilty. As the station fills up, more and more people are looking at me and at this woman who is yelling at me. I show her my latest photos, and she starts accusing me of using some kind of third-party app. Then the train pulls up. I tell her to fuck off, and she starts screaming, "Pervert." I had to get off this train and wait for the next one, as she was following me and yelling, "Pervert." I was lucky that I wasn't fucked up by passers-by because of her. Imagine what it's like when, thanks to a shitty combination of circumstances, 50 people look at you with disgust and malice.
Women may not like the lack or complete lack of physical affection and emotional support from friends. Men often experience this.
Life has been hard lately. Yes, it sucks, bro.
Some people think you're aggressive and you're going to cause them problems or offend them. And some people expect you to always be strong and to react stoically to all the events that take place.
I wouldn't like it if people were afraid of me. I'm an old lady that almost no one notices, and that's great. I can communicate with anyone. If anything, I don't want to gloat. I try to give men a lot of compliments and am deeply grateful when one of you helps me with heavy bags. Hang in there, sir.
Constantly be aware that you may be seen as a threat. I love children, especially toddlers. Both kids and toddlers love me too, despite the fact that I'm a big bald dude with a beard. At the same time, I understand perfectly well that you can't blame moms for being too careful. So when I'm in the store or somewhere else, I try to be as inconspicuous as possible. I'm even ready not to walk across the aisle on purpose if I see a mom with a child there, whom I saw a few minutes earlier, because I don't want her to think, hey, is this guy following me? If you're not sexy, funny, and uninteresting, you're likely to be ignored by all the people in the world who aren't your good friend or family member. Apart from these two groups of people, no one will contact you. And even these people usually won't be very nice to you. A friend can pat you on the shoulder. Mom or dad will hug you once a month. Well, maybe more often if you see your parents all the time. Oh, I can answer this question from the perspective of a man who changed his gender from W to M. I don't blame women for this, but it really pisses me off that random women think I'm weird or see me as a potential threat. I'm a friendly, extroverted, autistic person, and what used to be perceived as funny behavior by a quirky girl is now weird at best and creepy at worst. And the hair on my ass. Inviting women on a date.
I don't mind taking the first step, but it took me about 10 years of experience to feel comfortable in such moments. It's tough as hell.
Many years ago, I heard a summary of a research project conducted by a university. They recruited a group of young, 21 to 30 years old, female volunteers and sent them to a training course on how to look and behave like men. They went to theater teachers, stylists, and vocal specialists, all so that women could look and behave and be accepted in society as men. Each of them was paired with a man who introduced them to the circle of his male friends for several weeks as a new colleague who arrived in the city for a couple of weeks. They were also used as a safety net in case something went wrong. The women kept a diary every day, and at the end they were interviewed. They hated this time. The comments were as follows.
No one listened to me. I hated going to pubs. No one looked at me there. No one talked about feelings. In general, there was so much competition and aggression around.
And just so you understand, these were friendly groups, carefully selected so that the subjects would not be exposed to any threat, and that they would be safe. Some women thought that they would easily survive this experience, since they had already had experience of being in friendly groups consisting mainly of men. They thought they knew what it was like for men to live. But when they found themselves in such a society as a man, everything turned out to be different. All in all, an interesting study. The presence of a prostate. Most of the people reading this comment are, of course, still too young to appreciate it, but sooner or later, you will remember my words. I'll slightly expand on this topic. With age, many men, and unfortunately some young guys, have a prostate that either A, becomes inflamed, or B, an infection gets there, sometimes altogether, which can cause prostate cancer. All of this can be quite a painful experience. And you can't ride a bike normally either. It hurts a lot. In addition, because of this trouble, problems with urination and unfortunately, sex can occur.